Hi, I'm Alex Lamb, author of the Roboteer science fiction novels, and you're watching Secrets of the Universe, the thrilling video blog sequence via which I attempt to unpack and explain every single major question that troubles humanity. Today I have, I can say with tremendous glee and excitement that I actually received some YouTube requests, which I'm extremely pleased about. The first of which is to answer or to explain human emotions. So, nice little field to start off with then. Human emotions, what's complicated about that? There's several questions I'm going to try to answer with regards to human emotions, but the first big one is, what are they? What are human emotions? Well, I would propose the human emotions are, if you like, tailored reasoning states that the brain can get into, which your mind lets you recognize as such, as opposed to tailored reasoning states that your mind doesn't let you recognize as such. Like, for instance, amygdala hijack, which was briefly mentioned in the previous video, or drunk. Lots of people get drunk and they don't really notice how drunk they've actually become. I have been one of those people. That's beside the point. Anyway, the idea is that, that when you have an emotion like happiness or sadness, it's pretty easy to tell, I am sad now, or I'm so happy. You pretty much have a good idea of what's going on. Now, so the next question is why? Why does the brain have such states? Why do we have self-signaled emotionality? Oh, here's a question. A fly. You can frighten a fly, seemingly, by kind of like nearly managing to spot it, and it all gets all really buzzy and wanders around all over the place. Is the fly truly afraid? Does it actually know fear if it's not a self-signaled emotion to the fly, and it's not sort of going, I seem to be experiencing a great deal of fear because of that shoe. Is the fly truly afraid? Oh, exciting philosophical existential question, which we will not successfully unpack in this particular video. We'll have to come back to that. The point being, why do we have self-signaled emotions in ourselves, these tailored reasoning states? And the idea is they have enormous learning value. When you're attempting to build out behavior change, well, the brain is always building out chains of behavior to try to achieve things. Like, so simple thing is like, I touched the stove. Ow! It hurt. The stove was hot. So now I've decided I'm afraid of the stove. So there's a very, very simple example of a response that we have. You know, the fact that we now know that we are afraid of the stove, as well as the stove burns us, enables us to then never go in a building with a stove. It's like, I'm so sorry, I can't do that, it's got a stove in there. And then to create chains of behavior that guide us towards the kind of stimuli that we want to have and away from the ones we haven't. I cannot possibly be in that room with that kitchen sponge, it makes me too angry. Depending on, you know, what are the specific experiences that we've had in our lives. So there's tremendous cognitive value in being able to reflect on our own state and to understand what it is. If you're like, it's like a very, very powerful, arguably the most powerful and important internal sense. It's not like an external sense like sight or hearing. It's kind of like an in-brain sense. But there's also tremendous social utility in emotions. There are certain emotions that are signaled, others that are not. So you can have emotions which we sort of feel inside, like sort of maybe ennui, mild existential angst, which don't necessarily get signaled as mild existential angst. Alex is like, you know, as opposed to sort of like, I've been too long at the DMV, Alex. But are they different? Are those two, anyway, the point being that happiness and sadness and so on and so forth, they are also things that are signaled because we are creatures designed to operate in groups. So as well as the cognitive value of being able to see and witness our own emotions, there's a tremendous social value of being able to look out for each other or stay away from people who are afraid of kitchen sponges or some such thing. So there's the social utility bound up in signaled emotionality. So we signal a lot. Cats, not so much, because they're solitary animals. So sort of angry cat, you know, sort of happy cat. Now cat owners may disagree here. It's like, nonsense. Fluffles has a vast range of expressions. And, they're probably right. If you spend a lot of time looking at Fluffles, maybe you can discern, slightly disengaged cat from, sort of like thrillingly enthralled cat. But for human beings, and for very few other creatures, so dogs they've got magic eyebrows that do all kinds of things. But for human beings have a ton of socially signaled emotions. So that's really what's going on there, sort of like cognitive utility, social utility. But human emotions are not just one thing. Human emotions is a vast, complicated field. They're like, for instance, there's what you might think of as your primal, simple emotions. So in that case, you have things like fear or excitement. So in other words, I was presented with an agonizing stimulus and now I'm deeply concerned about it. Or I was presented with an enormous bowl of candy and now I feel thrilled, hypothetically. I don't personally feel thrilled after eating a lot of candy. I feel sick. But some people might. My 5-year-old is generally terribly excited and bouncing off the walls even. But the point is those are, if you like, a primary sort of like base one human emotions. Anything that learns, any kind of alien we might meet or an AI, we would expect to have those kinds of emotions. But there are other ones that sit on top, a whole slew of social emotions, like we have what you might think of as social directed emotions, like I love you. That's a social directed emotion. Or we might have social comparative emotions, sort of like jealousy, kind of like, well, he's simply not as good at JavaScript as I am, despite the fact that he got that job, or some such thing. Or you might have, and then there's also the thrilling social cognitive emotions, ones that I'm particularly excited by, like laughter. We laugh together because we actually learn together. This amazing thing about human beings is that it's not just that we sort of think on our own, it's also that we think together. So, what is laughter? Laughter is this thing that happens when we're presented with a sort of a chain of stimuli that look like they might be a little bit risky and they turn out they're not actually risky at all. And we have to reframe the stimulus that we've just encountered. It's like that joke from the Edinburgh Festival, crime in multi-story car parks. That's wrong on so many levels. Not my joke. But the idea being there that, you're listening to somebody talk about something and then there's this reframing event that comes at the end. And when we laugh, ha 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 ha, we've discovered that we're not actually talking about crime. We're talking about something funny and silly. The realization in that case comes slightly after the words, which is what's interesting about the joke. But you get the idea. Human beings, and when one person laughs, other people are spontaneously drawn to laugh. Same thing happens with yawning. And now I'll probably accidentally start yawning because yawning is very contagious. But the idea is that, these contagious forms of emotionality serve a purpose and are a part of how we think and how we operate together in groups, which is enormously exciting. So human emotions then, what's exciting is also we do get to reflect. We do get to understand what it is that's going on in our own minds. Hooray for that. Because if I had one little sort of homey wisdom nugget that I would shove onto the end of this video, it's what do we do about emotions? How do we operate? What's my personal philosophy for dealing with emotions in life? Well, what I would say is that the thing about emotions is that all emotions you experience, up to and including amusement at somebody else's misfortune, they're all valid. They're all selected for emotional traits, behavioral traits that have come through human evolution, and every single one of them is there for a reason. They're a part of who we are. And if we understand that these things are at some level fundamentally legitimate human responses, that's actually good for us. We have a little bit of a sense of, a better sense of who we are. But having said that, I would propose that all human emotions, whether or not it's excitement or despair or amusement at somebody else's misfortune, operate best when you treat them like sheep. You give them a little paddock to run around in. So basically you use that capacity for introspection to basically sort of say, okay, that's enough wild manic glee now. Put down the bottle of vodka. or that is enough tragic despair, and check in with yourself and basically say, have I experienced this emotion in its human totality? And if you feel like you have, then decide that maybe it's a time to set it down. And that's been a guiding tool that I've used to make sure that I fully inhabit every emotion that comes my way, and I don't let my life get wildly derailed by any that come along. And of course, that's a slightly luxurious state to be in, because some people are simply overcome with a certain emotion which clouds out their capacity to reason. Hasn't happened to me yet, and I suspect in part that's because of things like all of the improv practice that I did that I mentioned in a previous video. But anyway, human emotions, ladies and gentlemen, that's, if you like, a kind of like ultra high level overview. If you'd like me to talk more on the subject, just let me know in the comments and I will endeavour to blurble more deeply. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Why not try my exciting science fiction books? They're lovely.